Good morning. My name is Johnny, and this morning we're going to look at the visit of the Magi. So we can find this in Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 to 12. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen, when it rose, went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. There's plenty that we can look at in this passage, but the key question which I would like to ask this morning is, why are they there at all? I've often thought that the Magi, or the wise men, stick out a bit in a nativity scene, especially if there's a camel with them. So why are they in the picture? Well, there's two answers here. Firstly, God chose them to be there, and the second is they responded to God's call. So God chose them to be there. Why did he choose them? Who are these people? Well, there's a lot of unknowns. There's a lot that people postulate about their roles and where they came from. So let's concentrate on the knowns. And those knowns are that they are foreigners from the east. Definitely not from Israel. Doesn't matter where from. They're foreigners. So they're Gentiles. And Magi, or astrologers, or diviners. People who throughout the entire Bible have not been given the best characteristics, the best reputation by the Bible writers. They're often seen as being condemned or being unclean. And so we have unclean foreigners here at the birth of Christ our King, which of course we as unclean foreigners ourselves should rejoice at, because it's through Abraham where God promises that Israel will bless all nations. We see all throughout the Bible that the whole idea is that Israel is supposed to be a light that the other Gentiles look at and they're drawn to, and that this is how the Gentiles are blessed and how all of earth, all of humanity comes to the Lord our King. We see this in Isaiah 60, where starting at verse 1, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. See, darkness covers the earth, and thick darkness is over the peoples. But the Lord rises upon you, and his glory appears over you. Nations will come to your light, and kings to the brightness of your dawn." A little later in verse 6, "Herds of camels will cover your land, young camels of Midian and Ephah, and all from Sheba will come, bearing gold and incense, and proclaiming the praise of the Lord." Revelations 21 also picks up on this similar theme, as the New Jerusalem is this bright shining city that draws the nations, and they bring their glory into Jerusalem. This idea of Gentiles being drawn to Christ, the light at the centre of Jerusalem, at the centre of Israel. This is a picture throughout the whole of the Bible. So we shouldn't be surprised that they're there actually at all, because this is showing that God's plan, that part of Christ's purpose here on earth, is to be a light to the Gentiles as well as to Israel. So the second reason that they're there is because God gave them a sign, and they have followed that sign. So the sign is a star. It's a surprising sign in some ways, because it's quite a small thing in the sky, and you have to be really looking out for it. Although I'm quite happy to be bringing you this on the December 22nd, because just yesterday was the Great Conjunction, which is where Jupiter and Saturn come very close together in the night sky and can look like one star together. And it's one of the theories that this could have been the Star of Bethlehem. However, it's just a theory. There's many and there's certain holes in it. But still, having a star as a sign seems almost odd to me. But then we see in Numbers 24, verse 17, this is a prophecy from Balaam. It's his fourth message. And we see that he says, I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star will come out of Jacob. A scepter will rise out of Israel. So maybe that's why they were looking for a star. Who knows? Whatever we do know is that they saw this as a sign that the King of the Jews had been born. And they then came. They pilgrimaged a long way, by any accounts. And then when they arrived, they were overjoyed and they worshipped him and they bowed down and they gave him gifts, significant gifts. Let's have a look at some of the other responses. Herod's response. Herod's response is fear. He's worried about his position. He doesn't understand that this is the coming of God's chosen king. He's just worried about his own place. And so he comes with fear and trickery, and when that trickery doesn't work, he brings anger eventually. And then a third response, maybe, is from Israel itself. Israel knew that a ruler was to be born in Bethlehem, because we've just had it quoted to us from Micah in verse 6 of Matthew chapter 2. They also knew it would be around about now if they were following the prophecies of Daniel. So weren't they expecting a king to be born in Bethlehem? Shouldn't this be a joyous event? Where is Israel at the nativity? Where are the wise men of Israel there? So what's their response? Is their response that they're looking in the wrong place at this time? And then that brings me to obviously the question for ourselves. What's our response? The Magi, they only had a glimpse. They just had a pinprick of light in the sky. Whereas we have Christ, and Christ shines brightly for us. When Christ shines brightly, he calls us to him. And this is a call which we need to not bring a response of fear, as Herod did, not bring a response of looking in the wrong place, as Israel did, but as the Magi did, we should seek it and we should worship. Let us seek and worship Christ, and let us learn from the Magi in that desire to come to him. Let me close in prayer. Father, Lord, I thank you so much for your word before us. Father, I pray you open our eyes to see Jesus. Father, may our hearts respond to your call. And Father, help us to lay all at your feet and to worship you. In Jesus Christ's name, amen.